Okay, let's back it up a bit. Oddworld Abe's Oddysee is a 2D platformer for the PS1 that is, well, really hard. It wasn't a big hit when it first came out, but it does have a bit of a cult following, and it's not hard to see why. In it you take control of Abe, a Meducan who works for Rapture Farms, and enjoys his job well enough, even though he's technically a slave. Rapture Farms is a rather dubious company that produces various food products made out of the wildlife native to whatever planet this takes place on. The game itself doesn't specify the exact setting, but the environments and light narrative elements do help you get a sense of a living, breathing world without the need for too much explicit exposition. However, one day Abe eavesdrops on a meeting between the business people who run the company, who are worried about declining profits. Their solution? Make a new dish made out of the Meducans. Realizing that his life is in danger, Abe sets out on a journey to save himself and the other Meducans from being eaten. The game has a lot of really effective dark humor, and I do appreciate some of the commentary it provides. Although I think the evilness of the corporation is a bit over the top, and the game's attempts to make the plight of the native wildlife seem important falls rather flat after said wildlife will have killed you about 10 billion times before the game is done, and your sympathy will have dried up and been replaced by sheer contempt. You know what? You. You deserve to be in a pie. That's all you're good for. Which segues us nicely into the gameplay. Abe's Oddysee is a platformer, but it takes a less traveled path when it comes to platformers. Most platformers follow the Super Mario Bros. Model, where the focus is on fun and any connection to realism is tentative at best. But one alternative to this model came about in the original Prince of Persia, which was a pretty decent game for its time. Unlike in Mario, you couldn't jump 16 feet high or gain superpowers, and if you fall from a high place, you'll take damage. Fall from high enough and you'll die. So the game requires a more careful, thoughtful approach, with a greater emphasis on traps and precise maneuvers, occasionally broken up with a few sword fights. While it's dated, the original Prince of Persia had some neat ideas, and as hard as it could get, it was mostly fair. And while you will die a lot, every death is ultimately your fault, and something you can learn from the next time. This style of gameplay was present in Blackthorn, a game that I also quite liked, and it is the style of gameplay used in Abe's Oddysee, but the game spices it up with a lot of different and unique elements, and each new level has something new to offer. One thing that remains consistent, however, is the difficulty. This game does not mess around. You will die. A lot. As I may have hinted at the beginning of this video, I said a lot while playing this game, as well as other words that I won't repeat here, because this game is really frustrating. But it's the good kind of frustrating, the kind that makes you all the more determined to keep going and solve the puzzles and overcome the obstacles, rather than the kind of frustrating that just makes you want to quit in disgust, a la Ghosts and Goblins. The biggest flaw with this game is that it's a little stingy with the checkpoints, and some levels can be just long enough that having to start all over again is a major annoyance. But given that I've played other games that are far, far worse when it comes to the distribution of checkpoints, this ultimately wasn't a deal breaker for me. On top of that, the game has no life system, and no limited continues, so you can die as many times as it takes for you to figure out the solution and the game won't punish you for it, which is nice because you will die. A lot. Plus it speaks to how good the game is that no matter how frustrated I got, I still wanted to keep going. I've heard there's a remake called New and Tasty, and I'll probably give that a go at some point. But looking at the game in its original form, it's pretty good, and holds up rather well. It's not perfect, and its obnoxious difficulty may be a turnoff for some, but I'd say it's worth a look. My final score is a 7 out of 10. Thought about giving it an 8, but in the end some of the game's more obnoxious puzzles, as well as the unclear requirements for the good ending, forced me to knock off a point. Not that it really matters, it's just a number, right? On that note, though, this game does have a lot of replay value, and you'll notice lots of details and secrets you didn't see the first time around, so that's a plus. So have you played Abe's Oddysee? What did you think of it? Is the remake any better? Whatever you think, be sure to let me know in the comments below. If you like what I do, feel free to subscribe and follow me on Twitter. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.